Alright, movies. They're good. Here are some. This year, I actually found honourable mentions, weirdly, the harder list to put together. So knowing there are some real good ones being left off here, in no particular order, this year I'm giving it to Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, The Quiet Girl, Bones and All, The Northman, Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Matilda the Musical, Barbarian, and The Banshees of Inisherin. A bunch more could have crept onto that list, and equally, I would happily have any of those take the number 10 spot, but this year, that honour, that privilege, goes to Cha Cha Real Smooth. A young man who works as a bar mitzvah party host strikes up a friendship with a mother and her autistic daughter. In all the years I've been making these videos, I believe this is the first film I've recommended made by somebody younger than me. And that could sound really depressing, but it actually makes me really happy. Because this little movie is just such a bloody lovely time. It's warm, delightfully low-key, has a wonderful cast, the writing and performances are so charming, it's an absolute gem. Huge congrats to Cooper Raiff on his second feature film at only 26 years old. He was even younger when it came out. In fact, this and his earlier film Shithouse would actually make a really comforting Sunday evening double feature. Right, on to number 9, Glass Onion. Tech billionaire Miles Bron invites his friends to a getaway on his private Greek island. However, when someone turns up dead, Detective Benoit Blanc is put on the case. It's so funny to me that after all these years, Daniel Craig is now playing a character who is so much cooler than James Bond. Man oh man, I love these movies. Some good camp fun. And though I marginally preferred Knives Out, if Rian Johnson keeps making them this good, I'll take 10. Any screenplay that gets a rule of 3 out of the word buttress is a winner in my book. Which, trucking through, gets us to number 8 with the wild and wonderful 3,000 Years of Longing. Whilst on a trip to Istanbul, a lonely scholar of narratology discovers a djinn who offers her 3 wishes in exchange for his freedom. Despite this being a George Miller film, his first since Mad Max Fury Road, nobody, and I mean nobody, turned up for this movie. Which is a shame, because I thought it really worked as this complementary but contrasting follow-up. Because whilst it has a lot of the same fun, bombastic George Miller directorial flair, the film also manages to remain relatively contained, set primarily within just one room, and as such is considerably more dialogue-led. It's a really thoughtful, playful, introspective script that walks through the ideas of wishing very honestly and logically. Her being a narratologist creates almost this awareness of her own fate. It's a wish fulfillment story in which she acknowledges that all stories about wishing are cautionary tales, and in an attempt to refuse the call, stresses the idea that in many cultures an abstinence from desire is considered enlightenment. Beautifully plotted, grounded, real characters in a heightened magical context, a fun, romantic, imaginative, massively overlooked fairy tale pondering on desire and contentedness. I really dug it and will be a one-man fandom for this film if needs be. Okay, on to number 7, a little Polish film called EO. Made with a love for nature and animals, EO follows a donkey through a series of encounters with various kind and cruel people. Gotta be honest, this one's hard to summarise, but man was I struck by it. It's this sweet, sad, small, surreal, subversive story in which you truly never get a sense of what's coming next. Joyfully unpredictable, I was really glued to it. Also, one of the best looking and sounding films of the year, mesmerising score, crisp sound design, and stunning visuals throughout. Yeah, I was really touched by this one. Richly cinematic, quietly profound, good donkey movie. Right, let's step it up. At number 6, we have Aftersun. A woman reflects on the shared joy and private melancholy of a holiday she took with her father 20 years earlier, trying to reconcile the father she knew with the man she didn't. I'm gonna be totally honest, I spent most of this film on a knife edge. Although I was enjoying the slower, slice-of-life pace, there was this constant unease as to where the film was going. And as it tiptoed towards some darker themes, I kept worrying that it might take a melodramatic turn. I was almost ready to admit that this one wasn't quite for me, and yet the capacity to really love it never fully left. So I was unsure, in a sort of limbo, waiting to see where it would go. But man, by the last 30 minutes, and especially the last 10, and especially the last 5, I was just totally and utterly swept up and won over. To the point where I was sat begging for it to complete its final sequence and cut to credits at such a specific moment, and that is exactly what happened. I found myself genuinely nodding as it came to a close. I felt so in sync and reassured, totally cementing not only that the film knew what it was up to the entire time, but actually what it had captured perfectly was this painful restraint. And once it had finished, the whole cinema just sat quietly through the entirety of the credits, just reflecting on what we'd seen. I'm a big believer that endings are the most important part of a story, and I share the honest journey I had with this film because it's such a reminder to stick with something before fully passing judgment. Yeah, truly crushing. Such an honest, gentle, tender movie. Difficult, smart, detailed, never spelling it out, and without betraying its approach manages to give an ending that feels so complete. Sometimes a film can excite you because it's pretty close to something you'd love to make one day, and other times the excitement comes from knowing you would not be able to make a film like this. So, huge props to Charlotte Wells. What a beautiful, beautiful film. Which, oh boy, takes us into the top 5, and taking that number 5 spot is the exquisite Tar. Lydia Tar is widely considered one of the greatest living composer-conductors and the very first female director of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. We meet her at the height of her career preparing for a much-anticipated live performance. However, over the ensuing weeks, her life slowly begins to unravel. God damn, where do you even start? This film had no choice but to be immaculate in every aspect of its production. The script is incredible, one of the most exciting, clever, complex, uncomfortable bits of writing this year. The direction then translates that story perfectly. The attention to detail is so rewarding. And who else at the centre but Cate Blanchett, who continues to be my favourite actress. I mean, she's just on another level. The commitment to the bit, the ways in which this film messes with you, the apartment for sale song, all of it culminates in an ending that somehow manages to capture the disturbing, frustrating, haunting absurdity of its subject. Mwah! Good fucking movie. Next up, after 11 years of anticipation comes this critically acclaimed indie movie from the Academy Award-winning screenwriter of Her, continuing the legacy of this Oscar-nominated series featuring arguably one of the most committed casts in cinema history. I am, of course, talking about Jackass Forever. And then this is the bit where I give a blurb to summarize the plot of Jackass Forever. Listen, if you're already a fan, I don't want my love to infringe on yours. The enjoyment of this film need go no deeper than dude here in balls funny is. In fact, in the immortal words of Eric Andre, who claims to be raised by these films, Jackass is primal laughter. It's not esoteric or cerebral, it's playing to your inner caveman. It's playing to your heart, and that's where comedy belongs. So skip ahead if you want, because I'm aware that saying much more than that maybe even goes against the spirit of these films. But fuck it, I adore the Jackass movies. I think they are joyous and shocking and hilarious and, in my opinion, really good art. I remember first seeing the show as a kid at my friend's house with his older teenage brother, knowing there was no way my folks would let me watch it. And then being genuinely so shocked that at a certain point I figured, that maybe my parents were right. And somehow, after all these years, it still manages to maintain that same feeling. In every single one, there's at least one section that I have to watch from behind my hands. A good comedy film will have me chuckling a number of times throughout. This film had me holding the chair in front of me, belly laughing. I watched it at a midnight screening with the grodiest audience, and about 10 minutes in, the guy behind me just announces to the cinema, "My brownie's just kicked in." At one point, one of my friends literally had to leave his seat, so just stood in the wings watching us watch it. It was joyous. One of my all-time favorite cinema experiences. I used to consider Jackass a guilty pleasure. It's just a pleasure. This group of very deeply broken people willing to put everything on the line in the name of stupidity at the expense of nobody but themselves. There's no bravado, it's undignified, it's real fear, it's real pain. But most importantly, the key thing I really truly enjoy about these films is that through all of that, by some miracle, they're actually a really sweet bunch of movies. Spike Jonze continues to be my biggest creative hero. I mean, this is the dude who wrote and directed Her, a film that takes a very honest and earnest swing at what we're doing here. Is there anything unique about the human soul? Are we entirely recreatable? And yet he's also the co-creator of Jackass. I think what I admire so fundamentally is he just perfectly exemplifies humanity's multitudes. We have the capacity to enjoy, create, and engage in both high and low art. You don't have to pick a lane. And I think that duality is the key ingredient that makes Jackass work. It's as much about seeing someone get hit as it is about seeing them get up again, about finding the funny side of pain, sharing that pure joy with friends, and not taking yourself too seriously. And it's been so funny to see critics slowly embrace these movies over the years. The first one was so universally panned, and yet with each film, the critical reception has gotten better and better. This despite the fact, and I cannot stress this enough, that they are the exact same fucking movie. Long-term critic of the Jackass series, Mark Kermode, described the fourth one as an oddly egalitarian world in which people can become heroic regardless of anything about who they are, race, size, ethnicity, whatever. I've even seen it open up a number of conversations about positive masculinity, about male nudity in cinema, about combating homophobia with homoeroticism for the MTV generation. And truly, if you're thinking it's really not that deep, you are completely correct. I'm just glad that we can both enjoy it. Jackass is truly one of my all-time favorite film series. I love showing them to people. And whilst they're all great, Jackass Forever has some of the best moments in the entire series. I think Danger Ehren was the MVP of this film and deserved a supporting actor nomination. I think Johnny Knoxville is the Buster Keaton of our generation. I love the new cast members, they fit in perfectly, and I reckon the opening sequence of this film is the best they've ever done. If this is where the series ends, it's one hell of a send-off. But if they find the joy of chasing a fifth one, despite how old these guys are getting, I'm fully in. Get some pals round, get some drinks, give these movies a spin. And you know what's crazy is despite all that, I enjoyed 3 films more than Jackass Forever, so get fucked, Jackass. Y'all ain't nothing special. No, incredible. So let's get it done. Taking my bronze medal for 2022 is The Fabelmans. This is an autobiographical retelling of Steven Spielberg's childhood, family life, and how he first fell in love with movies. Which, based on the description alone, sounds like one you're gonna skip. Likely just a cheesy, self-indulgent bit of Oscar bait. Well, I'm here to say no, fuck you. Fuck you. This film is a goddamn magic trick. Steven Spielberg is truly the master. He just makes it feel so easy. His ability to turn his hand to almost any genre always feels so effortless and intuitive. Consistently finding the balance of being in service of the script and genre, yet somehow also making it totally his own. More than anything, this plays as a deeply characterized family drama full of comedy and heartbreak, and I just end to end loved it. So well written, so personal and detailed, perfect casting all around, Judd Hirsch, Michelle Williams, Paul Dano, even Seth Rogen. And there's this amazing cameo and scene that I won't spoil right at the end of the film that just completely cracked me up. I imagine it was difficult and terrifying to make a film like this, and somehow for many that feels easier to dismiss because he's Steven Spielberg. But no, the vulnerability and honesty of this film was, to me, very deeply affecting. Once again, marrying craft and style with substance and soul, perhaps even giving us an insight into where those parts of him come from. I can already tell that when we're older, it's gonna have been surreal to be alive in a time where Steven Spielberg was still making some of his best movies. Which takes us to number 2, Triangle of Sadness. An influencer couple are invited to a luxury cruise ship alongside a group of the super rich. However, the situation takes an unexpected turn when they're hit by a brutal storm. This film is a fun-ass ride. I suppose the pitch is sort of Parasite meets Lord of the Flies, and boy howdy is it good. Ruben Östlund's writing and filmmaking is so fucking tight, hilarious, grim, smart, and granular. It's a real dark pleasure to watch him get his teeth in and chew on the times we're living in. One of the funniest films of the year, all culminating in this incredible scene where an American Marxist and a Russian capitalist argue over the tannoy of a sinking ship. It's just pitch perfect. More than anything, I found it very oddly inspiring and almost a little bit embarrassing, you know? Like, this motherfucker's good. If you're at all interested in directing and process, I'll leave a link in the description to this great conversation between Ruben Östlund and Jim Cummings, another director I really admire. Yeah, total genius, an absolute horrible pleasure. And so, with that, we've reached my number 1, and I feel like you definitely already know what it's gonna be, because like seemingly everyone this year, my favourite film of 2022 was, of course, Everything Everywhere All at Once. A middle-aged laundromat owner is swept up into an insane adventure in which she alone can save existence by exploring other universes and connecting with the lives she could have led. When a film is this ubiquitous, it feels almost distasteful to slather another layer of praise on top, but so be it. You've no doubt heard enough about this film already, so I don't want to overhype, but equally, I don't want to undersell. So if you've genuinely not seen this film, do yourself a favour, stop watching this video, go experience it. Okay, now that it's safe, I thought this was one of the most generous, life-affirming, exceptional films I've ever seen. Giving weight to the ultimate truth of nihilism, never denying that, but then asking fundamentally where you go from there, made for such a fun, existential, beautifully executed joyride. The feeling that somehow everything is your fault, the strength and fight of sustaining kindness, and the notion that it can never come too late. Man, this film killed me. I didn't know it, but I really needed this movie. I was in the exact right place in my life for it. A feeling only strengthened for that being a very shared experience. So, my god, thank you to the Daniels for just leaning in. And I'm so glad they've now set the bar for multiverse storytelling, rendering some of the more cynical corporate attempts so dull and unimaginative by comparison. I know for a fact that if I wasn't already into movies, this film would have got me there. What a powerful reminder of the ever-evolving possibilities that storytelling creates. I truly cherish the fact that I live in a universe where this movie exists. So I suppose neither the optimist nor pessimist has won out in me this year, so much as the balance between the two. And who knows, if this ends up being the last one of these that I make, it's a pretty perfect note to end on. So there we go. In this universe, art interacts unquantifiably with both objectivity and subjectivity. So let me know in the comments below which 2022 movies objectively fit your subjective criteria for what tastes good on your brain tongue. Hope you're well, hope you're getting through. In the wise words of Wayman, please be kind, especially when we don't know what's going on. Right, goodbye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye now. Goodbye.